Alright, so in this video, I want to explore kind of like what it's like retiring from people pleasing. Well, more so specifically, this kind of like matter of like the rescuer complex. Um, Again, it's challenging for me to kind of like reflect on all this stuff because I'm challenging myself to like talk more about the story of my future than like continue recalling my past. But of course, it's necessary in terms of healing and transforming and everything. Once you see the story or the stories that you've been telling yourself in a different light because you heal the stories, right? So instead of you considering yourself to be somebody who's unworthy and lack something inherently, as in being inherently defective, you see it for what it really was, what it truly was. And what that actually was that stuff was just being projected onto you, and you mistook somebody else's crap for yours, and you carried around a bunch of unnecessary weight for a long time. My my partner I don't remember the question that my partner recently asked me, but it was very interesting, and it was regarding the rescuer complex. Um, it's very strange to approach relationships based on that because it's not healthy, and your relationships really aren't going to go very far. But what I'm here to do is talk about kind of like retiring from that, and just like how it's very challenging because when you've spent so many years conditioned into that role, based of course on trauma and conditioning from upbringing and everything. um, the world looks different when you try to step outside of that because you look at your role as somebody who's there to make people happier or happy in general, which by the way you're not. Um, Living in a way that makes you feel like your primary role is to save people from their shit is not only unhealthy, but it's very interesting because of course your relationships are going to be formed from a place of you're given more than 100% and you're getting crumbs in return, right? And so, like, when you finally awaken from that illusion that there's something inherently wrong with you, that you are defective, that you lack something, that you are unworthy for this, that, and the other reason, and you see it in fine detail for what it is and where it came from, again, it's like that kind of like aha moment, like, oh, wait, really? Oh, never mind then. But then, like, at the same time, like, you almost also don't know how to approach social situations, people moving forward. And that's why there's something very interesting about kind of like stepping out of that role and being like, oh, well, then what now? Right? And it's like, okay, well, you know, if you had this level of awareness and this realization 10 or 15 years ago, what would you have done with it? Right? Okay, well, what I would have done was taken all of my energy back on myself and realizing that I was conditioned into a role, exerting a fuck ton of energy into things that were never my responsibility. And instead, I'm going to take all of my energy back on myself, and I'm just going to focus on creating and building for myself. And that's kind of like how like everything would have been changed. So then I would assume that that's probably the best path to take now moving forward. That's the best route to take. Um, and it makes sense too because I have a very interesting. No, I don't want to say that now. I used to. I'm gonna try to be more so minimal with my references to the past and everything. Um, I used to have a very interesting get up and go attitude towards kind of like approaching other people and taking care of other people. It's like I would always show up for other people, wave I would run like I'm on fire towards you know doing what I can for other people, but then like when it came to like showing up for myself, it was like eh, you know, and that kind of is very interesting because again, that goes back to what traumatized me growing up. But also realizing, okay, well, you never needed to be that way. You were only just that way because you thought that there was something inherently wrong with you and you needed external validation to feel okay about yourself. And it's like, no, that's that was never the case. That's just what you thought it was. But again, that was an illusion based on beliefs that you were conditioned with growing up. So there is just, the shedding of layers. One of my favorite bands, Tool, I reference one of their songs. I'm not sure if it's 46 and 2. I forget which one. But it's talking about, like, the shadow, right? Kind of like becoming aware of the shadow. Okay, so why was the rescuer complex formed? It was formed because trauma, right? I'm not going to get into the logistics of the trauma, but it was formed because of the trauma. And, part of that had to do with, like nice guy people pleasing and everything. Being conditioned by this idea that the world doesn't like you, and so therefore you've got to be boundaryless. um, but yeah, it's very interesting being at this point in the process or journey of healing, because I'm realizing so many things, like, you know, um, just stepping out of the role of being the firefighter, of, like, I don't know. It's just it's very interesting. I took on far more responsibility than I ever needed to growing up, but that also taught me to be highly attuned to people's emotions and energies. But with that also comes, when you're conditioned to believe that you are the rescuer and you form this rescuer complex, right? You are so tuned into everyone else's energy that you don't know where you end and where they begin. So, of course, enmeshment. Um, and that's also the other thing too that's very interesting. You know, forming conscious relationships based around, like, you know, knowing somebody so much so to the extent that you believe that they can you believe that they can take care of themselves as needed, right? But it's very interesting because I would argue that many people have been conditioned into roles where it's not that they can't take care of themselves, but it's like they the way that they are, their energy suggests that they lack something too, that they can't take care of themselves. Um, and what's interesting too, uh, there's this term, psychosomatic, right, dealing with mind and body, and in families that are psychosomatic, there is there's kind of this, like, foundation of, like, illness, but the illness stems from what I understand, a need for attention. So it's not really like an actual illness, but it's kind of like, I think I'm correct about this. It's kind of like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I won't say something that I think I'm correct about. That's how misinformation spreads. I'm not trying to spread misinformation. Um, yeah. Anyway, it's very interesting where I am now, kind of like deconstructing all these different roles that I've taken on and kind of like stepping outside of them, retiring from them and everything. People pleasing is very, very strange. But I mean, it all comes down to when you learn a belief early on in life that you're just not accepted, like, so then you learn a belief again. It's a belief. It's not true. It's not fact. It is just a belief, and it's not true either. um, a belief that you lack something, and then what you lack, that other person over there or those other people over there have it, and therefore you need to sabotage and abandon yourself and sacrifice yourself, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever it is, um, to gain validation externally. That's people pleasing. You do things that you're not comfortable with just because you think that that other person out there holds the key to your fucking destiny, and it's not true. So, shit is crazy. Yeah. Retiring, people pleasing, nice guy complex, rescuer complex. Um, Either permeable boundaries or boundarylessness altogether. Yeah. It's fun. It's very fun to just like say no to someone without having any reason at all whatsoever, because it puts you in a space of discomfort that's absolutely necessary, absolutely essential. Um for your growth, for your evolution. And it challenges the narrative, it challenges the rhetoric that you learned about yourself growing up. So, yeah,